The Western Cape High Court has spoken. In a landmark ruling delivered in Saldanha Bay on Friday, the 2nd of May 2025, Judge Nathan Erasmus found Kelly Smith, her boyfriend Jacquen Appollis, and their associate Steveno van Rhyn guilty of trafficking and kidnapping 6-year-old Joshlin, her child, their victim, still missing. Before we continue, this is just to inform new viewers. We will dive deeper into this in our final Joshlin Smith weekly trial breakdown that drops on Sunday. So be sure to subscribe and turn on those post notifications. And thank you to those who've already joined our community. So this wasn't a case that ended in quote-unquote reasonable doubt. This was a case that ended in clarity, in law, in fact, in accountability. Let's break down exactly what happened in court in simple, clear terms. Judge Erasmus took more than 2 hours to deliver his ruling. He walked through every charge, every claim, every contradiction, and when he reached the heart of it, his words were plain. Open quote, "By treating a child as a commodity that can be sold, it falls within the definition of slavery," close quote. Joshlin was 6. She depended entirely on the people closest to her mother, her caregivers, and those are the same people who, the court has now found, planned to traffic her for 20,000 rand. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a rumor. The court found that all 3 accused participated in a deliberate plan to get rid of Joshlin, to hand her over to someone else, never to be seen again. Let's simplify what the law says. The state charged the 3 under a special law called the Pakotip Act, or the Prevention and Combating of Trafficking in Persons Act. Under that law, when the victim is a child, the state doesn't need to prove how the child was moved or who exactly paid the money. All they need to prove is 1. That the child was moved or taken, and 2. That the goal was to exploit the child, like selling them. The judge accepted that. He said the evidence showed that Joshlin's freedom was taken away. That's kidnapping. And because it was done for money and she was handed over, that's trafficking. Kelly, Jacquen, and Steveno all told the court that they were innocent. Jacquen and Steveno claimed they were tortured into confessing. Kelly said she had nothing to do with any of it. But Judge Erasmus was blunt. He called their defense, open quote, so bad nobody can believe it, close quote. He said there was no reason to accept that they were beating into confessing. He said they were well aware of their rights. They were warned. They signed documents. They told the same stories to different officers. It was consistent and it was damning. The judge pointed to key evidence that helped him make this decision. Evangelist Nico Couture, who testified that Kelly told him months before Joshlin went missing that something big was going to happen in DS4 and that someone offered 20,000 rand to do it. State witness Laurentia Lombard, who told the court that Kelly confessed to her that she had quote-unquote sold the child, and the fact that when the police found bloody clothes during the early searches, Kelly was not shocked. She never broke down. She never acted like a mother in crisis. The judge said this, open quote, "You have all participated in an act of removing the child from the control of her family and mother and placing her in the control of someone else," close quote. That is trafficking. That is kidnapping. The judgment was clear. All 3 accused were convicted on both charges: trafficking in persons for selling or handing over Joshlin, kidnapping for taking her without lawful reason and control. Their convictions were handed down in full public view in a courtroom packed with journalists, community members, and relatives. So what happens now? The court did not proceed to sentencing today. Instead, all 3 will appear next week on Friday the 9th of April 2025 at the Western Cape High Court in Cape Town. There, the prosecution and defense will map the road ahead. The state is expected to argue for aggravating circumstances. In other words, they will try to show why the punishment should be extremely severe. That could include Joshlin's young age, the fact that she's still missing, the betrayal of trust by her own mother, the planning and intention showed in the accused's actions. The law allows for life imprisonment in trafficking and kidnapping cases, especially when a child is involved. Judge Erasmus made it clear. This trial was about more than law. It was about betrayal, about cruelty, about what happens when the people meant to protect a child turn against her. He said, open quote, "The court rejects your evidence as false beyond a reasonable doubt," close quote. And to Laurentia Lombard, the state's Section 204 witness, the judge said he would decide later whether she will be granted immunity from prosecution. That decision will only be made after all sentencing arguments are completed. Joshlin Smith's whereabouts are still unknown. She still remains missing. But today, the court acknowledged her. It named what was done to her, and it held the people responsible to account. We will be there next week in Cape Town, where the fight for justice will enter its final stage. This brings us to the end of our recap. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. And I would also love to hear from you. Comment below on what you thought of this recap or anything that you've heard so far in the trial or the judgment. Also, visit our news website swisherpost.co.za for the best explainers on every important event happening around you. No agenda, just the story.